Today we're going to continue our study of Chapter 7, Lesson 3 on severe weather. And we're going to do Part B today, which we're dealing with hurricanes. There are 3 objectives for today's lesson that you should know by the end. You should be able to describe the formation of hurricanes, describe the characteristics of hurricanes, and explain how to stay safe during all types of severe weather. Okay, you're going to come back and log into BrainPop through ClassLink and watch the movie Natural Disasters. Make sure you complete that quiz also. So, hurricanes. How does a hurricane form? Well, if you've not had a whole lot of experience, like if you've not grown up around hurricanes, this is probably something kind of foreign to you. But since I grew up in southern Alabama, this was just a part of my life growing up. So I'm pretty familiar with them, and they're very intriguing to me. And due to the fact that I still have family in the Deep South that continues to have to deal with hurricanes, I have quite a bit of interest in them. So a lot of people think that a hurricane is basically the same thing as a tornado, and it's not. A tornado is a stronger storm than a hurricane, but a hurricane is just relentless. Tornadoes come and go. Hurricanes, they just wear on your nerves. They're like there forever and ever and ever and ever. So a hurricane does begin as a group of thunderstorms moving over tropical ocean waters. And you've got to have the winds that are traveling in 2 different directions to meet and cause the storm to spin, just like you do in a tornado. You've got to have something to cause the spin. And we know hurricanes, of course, can cause a lot of damage when they move near or onto land. And wind speeds of most hurricanes range anywhere from around 120 to 150 kilometers per hour. So that's about 70 to 150 miles per hour. And we're going to talk about the different categories. Make sure you log into BrainPop through ClassLink and watch the movie on hurricanes. Complete that quiz as well. So here you're looking at a cross section of a hurricane, like they kind of cut it in 2. And surrounding the eye is the eye wall. So the eye wall. And this is a group of cumulonimbus clouds that produce heavy rains and strong winds. The winds can reach speeds of up to 300 kilometers per hour. So about 170 miles per hour. The eye wall, and actually on the east side eye wall, is the strongest part of the hurricane. At the center of the hurricane, you have the eye, and that it actually looks like an eye. Like if the eye passes over you where you are on land, you can look up and you can see totally blue sky. It is the weirdest thing. I mean, like birds will be flying, sunny, bright, warm, and then all of a sudden the second half of the storm hits you. But anyway, the eye is a core of warm, relatively calm air with low pressure and light winds. And by the way, the lower the pressure, the stronger the storm. So the lower the pressure gets in a storm, the stronger it becomes. Beyond the eye wall, you have spiraling bands of clouds called rain bands. And they circle the center of the hurricane. The rain bands produce heavy rains and high winds. And within this area of the hurricane, wind speed decreases as the distance from the eye wall increases. Okay? So the further away from this eye wall you are, the less severe the wind and the rain would be. However, it's still not a walk in the park. I mean, if you're in a hurricane, it's pretty bad. But the closer you are to that eye wall, especially the eastern side, the right side, the more severe it will be. So what can you do during any type of severe weather to keep yourself safe? Well, thunderstorm. Lightning is one of the most dangerous parts of a thunderstorm. So if you're outside, you need to stay away from trees that can get struck down. And they call it grounding out. It may strike the tree, but you could also be impacted by that lightning strike. So if you are out in the open, you need to crouch down as low as you can with the least amount of your body actually touching the ground. So don't lay down, crouch down. Least amount of your body touching the ground, but you want to get as low as you can get to decrease your chance of being struck by lightning, because lightning is kind of lazy. It's going to travel the path of least resistance. So normally the highest thing around is what it's going to strike. So note to self, if you like to golf and there's a thunderstorm coming up, get to a safe place. I mean, think about you holding the metal iron rod above your head, like you're calling the lightning to come down and strike you. Tornado safety. If there is a tornado warning for your area, you need to find shelter quickly. The best place for you to be is in a basement or a cellar, so underground. If you don't have that, you need to go to the innermost part of your house or the building that you're in with no windows. In other words, you want to surround yourself with as many walls of protection as you can between you and the tornado. So the centermost part of your house. Flood safety. The best thing to do during a flood, find a high place and wait out the flood. So if you know you live in a flood-prone zone and you've got heavy rain coming, then it's best for you to leave. You can replace things, you can't replace you. Hurricane safety. If you live in an area where hurricanes strike, you will have warning. So if you plan to stay, you should have a disaster supply kit that includes enough water and food to last several days. You've got to think that when hurricanes strike, it's hot. So it's not uncommon that you would be without power for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, sometimes even longer, depending on the strength of the hurricane. So you need to be prepared to be able to survive. I'll tell you just a short little story here. Baldwin County, Alabama, which if you don't know where that is, if you've ever heard of Gulf Shores or Orange Beach, Alabama, that's the area that I'm talking about. And the area from where I'm from, my first cousin, Hoss, is the sheriff of Baldwin County. So he gets to deal with all the emergency management of the hurricanes and all that come through down there. And Hurricane Ivan is one of the worst to actually ever come through. And here is a clip that you're going to go back and watch about Hurricane Ivan, and then a Prezi it's kind of like a PowerPoint, and it's going to show you before and after pictures of Hurricane Ivan. But anyway, they have different zones of evacuation. So if you're down near the coast and they issue a mandatory evacuation, that means they're telling you to get out, leave, go. And depending on how bad the hurricane is, like if it's a Cat 5 that's coming in, it goes from a Cat 1 to Cat 5, Cat 5 being the highest, the strongest, the worst. And you won't leave, they have the authority to arrest you. So at least they know you'll be safe in the jail and, you know, they can take care of you. But if it's not quite that bad and they don't have room in the jail, they'll say, okay, you want to stay, you're in this mandatory evacuation zone. So if you're just determined to stay here, let me see your right arm. And the people will look at him like, well, what do you mean to get in my right arm? And they'll say, so we can write your name and your social security information and permanent marker so we can identify your body. And then that makes people think. And then they say, let me see your left leg. So in case one side of your body doesn't make it through, they have the other side to identify your body. So most of the time, people will leave when that alternative is offered because they will not come out if it's not safe for them to rescue you if you have chosen to stay and you are under a mandatory evacuation order. So if you ever move to an area where hurricanes are prevalent, then you need to listen to your local authorities. So same applies for any of these other severe weather events. You need to keep track of what's going on with the weather in your area and know how to deal with it. Don't panic, but know how to deal with it and know what to do, just so you're always prepared. So this is the end of lesson 7.3b. Next time, we will move on to 7.4, which is forecasting the weather.